You gonna help us out tonight?
What do you think I'm here for? Where are they, boys?
New Orleans! New Orleans!
Welcome in New Orleans. This city, located in the state of Louisiana in the south of the United States, is a land full of history, culture, and folklore. New Orleans is the place to be if you're an amateur of any kind of art, especially music, because this is where jazz was born. It's also a city of gastronomy, and meals of New Orleans gather different cultures from the rich history of the city. If you're lucky, you'll probably meet an alligator or a voodoo priestess walking around Bourbon Street or the French Quarter.
It is 1830, and for 18 years, steamboats have churned the waters of the Mississippi River, downstream with valley produce, upstream with manufactured goods as black smoke billows and whistles blow. Traveling aboard the boats are northerners like John Abbott, southern planters like Alcée Dornier.
La Nouvelle-Orléans was founded in May 1718 by the French Mississippi Company. It was named after Philippe d'Orléans. In 1717, John Law, the financial minister, decided to import black slaves in Louisiana through the East India Company, which brought 6,000 slaves from America between 1719 and 1743. Slaves also came from Haiti and Saint-Domingue. The harbor of New Orleans had a main role in the slave trade. It had the most important slave population. In Louisiana, the cotton farmers and owners preferred buying African slaves because they were stronger, but also took Indian domestics in their house. The life conditions of slaves depended on the ruler's cruelty. Some slaves could be autonomous, whereas others were beaten or raped, and then had to run away from the plantation to go in New Orleans. The slaves contributed to the creolization of Louisiana society. They brought their folklore. The city became mainly a white civilization, whereas New Orleans used to be a black city. But there is still an important racism that remains between black and white people even after the segregation period.
Following pictures, taken at the risk of his life, were procured for curiosities by a member of the Marine Guard. The hideous voodoo ceremonies are held in secret and buried locations.
Black slaves from Africa and Indians from West Indies brought their own culture and religion to New Orleans. This religion, called Voodoo, is based on animism, sorcery, and the adoration of fetish. Voodoo followers believe in the existence of a supernatural world made of good and evil spirits, and which is possible to communicate with by inducing a trance. The Voodoo ceremonies are often practiced by priestesses and priests who communicate with the spirits trying to be possessed by them. Voodoo members also make animal sacrifices, believe in zombies, and the power of controlling people by picking needles in tissue dolls. The voodoo cults were considered as barbaric and savage during slave trade. From then, the traditional voodoo religion has turned into a Christian voodoo, including some Christian values to their cults. We all know that jazz was born in New Orleans. Jazz is a musical genre that emerged in the late 19th century and early 20th century through African American community. This musical style is particularly identifiable by 5 iconic instruments of jazz: saxophone, trumpet, trombone, clarinets, and piano. Gradually, jazz music has been supplemented by guitar, bass, and drums. traditional jazz was born in New Orleans before being moved to Chicago. Thereafter, the jazz split into a multitude of other genres such as bebop, ska jazz, gypsy jazz, soul jazz, swing, or acid jazz. Jazz is mainly played in a band, and today, the most famous jazzmen are Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, Billie Holiday, or Nina Simone. But we often forget its pioneers like Kid Ory, King Oliver, or Sidney Bechet. New Orleans jazzmen were used to play in special jazz bars called honky-tonks or on steamboats decked with banjos and harmonicas. The New Orleans landscape crossed by the Mississippi River is mainly composed of lush vegetation and water. It developed its waterborne transport so it could welcome deep-sea fleets and become one of the main harbors in the US. It developed a lot of industrial and trade activities even though it went through few difficulties. New Orleans has been a victim of the Katrina hurricane on the 29th August 2005. It was a dramatic disaster with 80% of the city flooded. In the end of January 2006, the Louisiana Weekly listed 144,000 inhabitants for the center of the city, where before the New Orleans counted 500,000 people. The city is surrounded by the bayou, the name for the swamp around the city, a dark and mystery place where took place several legends and where you'll probably meet alligators if you're lucky buying a boat swam tour during your trip. New Orleans is also famous for its food. A lot of people go there for the New Orleans gastronomy because of its influence of different cultures, France of Louis XIV, the Spanish colonies, the African slaves, the Caribbeans. The indigenous cuisine is really distinct and influenced by its history and the centuries of conflation of Creole and French cuisine. New Orleans food is famous for its local ingredients, which gathers French, Spanish, Italian, African, Native American, Cajun, Chinese, and Cuban food traditions. Everybody knows what Tabasco is and knows New Orleans specialties such as beignet, or the equivalent of French bean traditionally served with a café au lait at Café du Monde, po' boy, which is a very cheap sandwich made with French bread, Italian muffaletta sandwiches, Gulf oysters, boiled crawfish and other seafood, etouffee, jambalaya, gumbo, traditional spicy meals made of shrimps, rice, sausages and chicken, and other Creole dishes. The event of the year in New Orleans is Mardi Gras. As famous as Venice or Rio de Janeiro, Carnival of New Orleans has its own particularities. It is celebrated on the last day before Lent, a time of the year you fast. Before Lent, all eggs, meats, and milk products must be consumed, which leads to Strobe Tuesday. In Louisiana, the celebrations begin the day of Epiphany on the 6th of January until Strobe Tuesday. The day of Strobe Tuesday changes each year depending on the sun and season movements. In New Orleans, the central event of the party are the parades organized by the principal crew. They stage fabulous parades in the French districts, including floats, people wearing costumes, brass bands, orchestras. They follow each other throwing necklaces of pearls, candies, and golden coins. Floats are decorated on different themes: children's stories, characters of mythology, celebrities, and everything's made of dance and music, jazz music of course. There is a real color mixtures, colors of skin because New Orleans is a big melting pot, but also colors of the costumes, torches, and decorations. During the ceremony, there's the election of the King and Queen of Mardi Gras. For this special occasion, a cake called the King Cake is made. You got it, New Orleans is a city full of stories, legends, mysteries, history, but also colors and diversity. Mississippi and New Orleans have inspired authors from different generations such as Mark Twain and its Tom Sawyer, which has been adapted to TV series and movies. The movie New Orleans from 1947, starring Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong and Dorothy Patrick, is one of the symbols of this inspiration, just like more recent movies like the Disney animated movie The Princess and the Frog, which invites you to join Tiana and Navin in a crazy journey down in New Orleans. Also, video games were inspired by New Orleans like Nancy Drew and The Legend of the Crystal Skull. So what are you waiting for? Come visit New Orleans.
I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield
Down by the riverside. Down by the riverside.
Yeah,
Down by the riverside.
I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield.
Down by the riverside.
I'm gonna study one no more.
One no more.
I ain't gonna study one no more. I'm gonna study one no more.